Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Mary Perino. I'm the Director of Communications for the Hudson Gateway Association of Realtors. And I want to thank you once again for attending our Breakfast with Benefits. And today we have a really interesting topic about home energy efficiency, something really important as we get into the colder months ahead. Today's event is presented and sponsored by Robison, our friends at Robison. And I want to introduce to you Chad Hunt. Chad is the Senior Advisory Partner for Robison, and Chad will be introducing you to our panelists. So good morning, Chad, and thank you.
Thank you, Mary, and good morning, everyone. I'll make this intro pretty brief, and just wanted to make sure that you kind of understood who Robison is and the entirety of the suite of services that we offer. A majority of you in the county know us as an oil company, and we're much more than that. For example, in addition to heating oil, we also provide heating and cooling solutions. We are one of the largest ESCO providers in Westchester County, meaning that we sell both electricity and natural gas as well. And as Dan will go on to tell you, we started out as an oil company, then we started selling natural gas and energy, and today we sell probably more electricity than we do natural gas and oil. So that's just kind of how the company has grown. And then in addition to servicing residential homes, we also do commercial energy supplier. We do mold testing. We do indoor air quality checking, water and fire remediation. And we are also licensed plumbers and electricians. So, anything that encompasses under the roof, minus construction, right? and things of that, hardcore stuff, we have the capability to do it. So as everyone's kind of throwing out ideas today about what the home of the future is, in addition to heating, I want you to consider Robison for maybe having that new homeowner install an electric charging station in the garage, right? We have that capability. And more importantly, we are, big believers in technology and servicing the home. So it's, some people will say, well, if you're an oil company, why are you telling me about other alternatives to, other than selling me home heating oil? There's not one solution for everyone, but we try to kind of have all of that in under one roof. We are big believers of heat pumps, and that's why we're sponsoring this today. And just kind of pulling some rough numbers. During the last heating season last year, we installed approximately 150 heat pumps in homes. So we're doing an installation today, minus the weekends. And we're trying to give homeowners in Westchester and Putnam some better control over what their heating costs are going to be, because unfortunately, heating is just going to go up. So with that, Mary, if you could bring us to the list of panels, I'll introduce everyone, and then they can just do 1 minute intro of themselves, and then we'll kick off our presentation.
Okay. Here. Oop. Bear with me. Technically challenged at times. Here we go.
So we're going to start off with Dan Singer. Dan, can you please just give us a 1 minute intro about yourself?
Sure. Yep. Just want to make sure I'm unmuted. You guys can hear me. So my name is Dan Singer. As Chad mentioned, I'm the CEO and president of Robison. Also, as Chad mentioned, we like to consider, contrary to what many people know of Robison, ironically, the picture of me on this profile has me standing in front of an oil truck. We're really consider ourselves to be more of a home comfort company. So whatever people need to keep themselves comfortable in their homes, which includes heating, which includes cooling, which includes air quality and humidity and everything else. So we celebrated our centennial anniversary last year, been part of the county and the community for a long time, and we really consider ourselves to be more of neighbors to those that live in Westchester County rather than a business partner or a supplier.
With that, we'll go to Michael Murphy now of Murphy Brothers Contracting.
Thank you, Chad, and thank you, Robison's, for sponsoring this event today. And thank you, Hudson Gateway Association of Realtors, for hosting it. It's a very important topic. Michael Murphy, as you can see there, today I'm strategic development. Usually I'm business development. I didn't realize I changed my title. But Murphy Brothers Contracting is known throughout the Westchester, Fairfield, Lower Hudson Valley region for building beautifully designed custom homes and a potpourri of commercial projects such as private clubs, mid-rise multifamily, which used to be called apartment buildings, and the like.
Thank you for that. And John Oppermann, can you please give us a 1-minute intro on yourself and what you do?
Hi, everyone. I'm John Oppermann. I am based out of New York City, and I'm a real estate broker with Avenue 8 and a sustainable home consultant. Basically, what I do is I connect people to various varieties of sustainable or healthier homes, in particular in New York, and work with sellers and developers to communicate the benefits of more sustainable and healthier homes to a broader public, which is what we're going to be talking about today.
Thank you. And Andreas.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andreas Benzing. I'm an architect here in the city. We specialize in high performance design. I'm also executive director of New York Passive House, which is a non-profit organization making passive house available to everyone. And I am also teaching environmental design at Columbia and Parsons.
Thank you. So we're going to have Andreas start us off today, but just so you can get a kind of concept of what we're talking about, this today is for the higher end home. And we're talking, Michael will kind of get into it, but we're talking anything from 3,000 square feet up onto 30,000 square feet, and just how to get these homes to run a little bit more efficient. Dan will touch on the fact that, there's not one solution for for all the homes. And just given the fact that we live in the climate that we live, sometimes it's going to take a mixture of all of the different solutions that we're talking about, including heating oil, especially when you get into sub-zero temperatures. So with that, Andreas, please start us off, and we'll take it from there.
John will
Yeah,
start.
John and Andreas, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep, great. And did we want to share from our slides? We're not going to run through continuing from these.
However you want to do it, but Mary has a master deck, but
That,
Yep.
this is the next one? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so we're going to do kind of a lightning round for this. This is a presentation that often could take about an hour, but we're going to speed through it, and then we'll have a sort of Q&A at the end. But just another quick intro to the work that I do. Basically, as a broker and a consultant, I connect people to the wide range of more sustainable or healthier homes that people could be pursuing if only they knew about it. I run an environmental nonprofit called Earth Day Initiative, and we have a green buildings publication that we've put out for several decades. My work with that green buildings publication made me realize that this publication that we put out, like the overall sort of green buildings industry, doesn't do a great job all the time of communicating to the broader public. It's a lot of industry talking to industry. And what I realized is brokers can be that piece. Usually brokers are the ones that are the most public facing, talking to potential homeowners, to consumers. And if we break through to that market and communicating the benefits of more sustainable homes, then we could go a long way to increasing the overall demand and then thus the supply for a more sustainable built environment. Can you, next slide? Thank you. This is all oriented around the idea that there is a large inventory of homes already that are built to some form of sustainable standard. And it could be passive house, which Andreas really focuses on. It could be just sort of an all-encompassing, what's often called a high-performance building. It could be a wide range of things that could make a building more energy efficient and better for the environment, but also better for the homeowner and the person living in that particular home, which is what we'll talk a bit about today. In New York City, some of the driving forces here are Local Law 97, which is a very ambitious climate law focused primarily on our building supply, which will force the developers and land building owners in New York City to upgrade their buildings. It's quite ambitious. It's going to be a big undertaking, and there are a lot of folks in New York that are pushing to make this successful, because if it works in New York City, then it can really create a model for the rest of the country and the rest of the world. Andreas, did you have anything you wanted to say about this slide?
Yeah, no, I think it's important to keep in mind that legislation and that's city and state, and that's also US wide, is pushing quite hard for building being more efficient, but also being more electrified, so to speak, to be in line with the renewable grid, which will eventually come to everyone.
And this is a theme that I think could sort of weave its way throughout some of the conversation that Andreas and I are having today, and what we do in a lot of presentations is that there is a kind of push and pull of regulation and public demand. And as regulation comes into place, people become more aware of it. In New York City, buildings have letter grades saying their energy efficiency on the front. So just like we've seen restaurant letter grades for a long time, those energy efficiency letter grades is really putting this conversation more top of mind for a lot of people. And then next slide. Thank you. And it's really what we focus on with my colleagues and the work that we're doing, connecting people to more sustainable and healthier homes, is figuring out how to best communicate what can often be very difficult to communicate concepts. So climate change in general, sustainability, environmental issues, these are all really big, complex topics, and I find that people are very overwhelmed by them. So what we have done, for instance, with the work that we're doing with the brokerage, and also with a course that I taught at NYU recently called Marketing Green Homes, is we look to other industries that have sort of broken through to the mainstream in a more successful way than the green buildings industry has thus far. So food is really that category that I see breaking through to the mainstream really a decade or more ago, where at least the average person, even if they're not a diehard environmentalist, they're vaguely familiar with organic food or local food or a plant-based diet. And some of the lessons that we can draw from that is bring everything back to what's very personal. For instance, so food goes in your body. It's the most personal thing that you have. And we can draw lessons from that in terms of like, what's good for you. So often we get bogged down in talking about, well, this energy efficiency mechanism changes the energy consumption by X percentage, and this is how it does it. But really, what's the end result? What's the end result for you? And one of the great things about high performance buildings is it's not only better for the environment, but it's also better for you. It can often deliver better air quality, better light quality, a more comfortable environment, stable temperatures year round, elimination of drafts. And there's all of these things that a more energy efficient home can do to make the whole space a much more livable environment. We just need to communicate that better to the public. And that's one of the lessons that we take from the sustainable food industry. We also have to flip this switch where in the past, what people associate with sustainable is often worse. So 3 decades ago, 4 decades ago, the more green option often was just a worse option, where it's like if you had a sustainable glue or adhesive, it simply didn't work. You would glue something to the wall and it fell off. But now sustainable is associated with a premium product. And I think that we see that with the food industry. So farm to table restaurants and local food and organic, those are all premium. People associate those with being a better, higher quality product. And that's the conversation we need to be having with sustainable homes, where this is a better building. It's not a sacrifice that you're making for energy efficiency, but this is actually a higher quality product. And next slide. Thanks. And then the next industry that is kind of on the cusp of breaking through is the sustainable fashion industry. And this again goes back to illustrate the sort of personal aspect of how to market features of sustainable products. So sustainable food goes in your body, fashion goes on your body. So I think logically it's the kind of next wave of what's breaking through to the mainstream. hopefully the built environment will be the next one. So the building industry will be that next wave because your body goes into a building. So again, with the concentric circles moving away from the human person. And the lessons that we can draw here are similar in that it's very personal, and also a flip is being made, a switch is being flipped around a more premium product. So sustainable fashion companies, people want the things that are sustainable, the brands that are sustainable, not just because it's better for the planet, but it's because they're cool, they're well designed. You're not making a sacrifice based on pursuing some fashion brand that is more sustainable. You're getting a premium product overall. And then next slide. Then there are kind of three prisms through which we communicate the benefits of a more sustainable and energy efficient home. One would be an explicit focus on environmental sustainability. People do care about this stuff, but it also can go beyond what we have thought about sustainability in the past, where it's just better for the planet. But a big piece of sustainability today that I see is resilience. And that gets back to people's personal impact. So people are seeing the local effects of global climate change, and they're making decisions, in my experience, at least through my work in New York City, around what neighborhoods to live in. Is it in a floodplain? Is it in a vulnerable area with sea levels potentially rising? People are thinking about, how are you getting your energy supply? How can I continue business as usual and minimize a disruption to my life if the power goes out, if we see increasing energy disruptions, if we see more extreme weather events? We just lived through a global pandemic that really disrupted business as usual, and people are bringing that kind of resilience mindset to home purchases and renovations on their homes. And I think, Andreas, you wanted to speak a bit to this as well, right?
Yeah, and I think translating those other industries into the building industry is an important factor where we really can build buildings which perform much better than what we are used to. So, for example, we have done a passive house, the first one in Westchester County in Scarsdale, and through a very detailed building design, you can actually reduce your overall energy use by up to 80%. In New York, we can see that specifically the heating, we can reduce by a factor 10 in those buildings. And that means that you don't have just a benefit of course, a lower energy cost, but also the associated carbon emissions from your building is dramatically reduced, and really offers you the opportunity for, even if for a larger building, to be sustainable, so to speak. And next slide. So we focus with our office on building performance, which means that we're using the passive house concept for all our buildings, meaning we have a higher performing window. In New York State, that usually means like a triple pane window, for example. We use a very specific airflow control or air tenants of the building. And that means you're reducing drafts in the wintertime, for example, but also you keeping unwanted stuff out of your building. And at the same time, we also ventilate our buildings with fresh air and with heat recovery, so we don't have energy loss associated with ventilating our buildings. And at the same time, we can also filter that incoming air, so you're producing a very quite well designed building. Higher quality, I think that's a very important part, right? It's really about the quality of the building. And that means with a high efficient mechanical systems like geothermal or heat pump systems, we can dramatically reduce that energy use and also the carbon emission from the building. And we are actually setting our buildings up for being net zero if you include some photovoltaic on your building. And most likely we also think about switching our buildings to all electric. And so that means we can reduce what is called the operational carbon. So that's the carbon emission from heating and cooling and domestic hot water. But we also can reduce in our buildings the embodied carbon. That's the carbon emitted when we build the building, so to speak, from the materials. and that's a very important factor for those buildings. Next.
Next slide, Mary.
And so, as I think, as John said correctly, I think we want to really communicate, like the other industries, the benefits. We have done a very poor job in doing so. So we usually do concentrate on the well-being and the wellness of our clients, because the high performance standard itself is really includes thermal comfort criterion. That's actually a core objective of it. So once you build a higher quality shell, that means you can provide a much better thermal comfort. Like in the winter time, you don't have cold draft in your building. That's really eliminated. You have if you have a large window, for example, you don't have low surface temperatures in your building. That's also eliminated by default. And so we can really create that beautiful, great internal comfort with at the same time with a very low energy use for the building. And that means we can provide less pollutants in the building, less dust, for example. Also, it's a very quiet building. If you step into such a building, you will see, because of the insulation layer and through pin windows, it's a very quiet environment as well. And we are also focusing often on more healthy materials we build into our building. That's an important factor. So overall, it's a much healthier and also geared towards the well-being of our clients. Next. John?
Yeah, so the two that we've covered so far is an explicit focus on environmental sustainability, which can include resilience. The second is wellness. And then the third is the focus on economics, which obviously, if you're decreasing the cost of operating your building, you are going to save significantly on energy costs. So Andreas had mentioned that in some cases you can reduce the energy usage by 80%, which means you're going to be reducing your energy bill by roughly that amount. And increasingly, it's not just the operating costs, but also going into the future, the value of your home will start to reflect the energy efficiency built into it. As we see more increasing regulation, we see more concern about energy costs. Homes that can demonstrate and really adequately communicate to the public that that is a benefit of the home will fetch a higher value. And we've seen this to some extent so far, but like I said, often we're not really communicating super well to the public the benefits. So we haven't been capturing that premium, except in rare cases where you really do communicate that well to the public. But there's these three different prisms along which we can communicate. And then there's a quick illustration on the next slide of kind of all of the different ways we can communicate around the different benefits of living in a high performance building. So buildings that are built to a variety of standards, these could expand even into standards like LEED or WELL, with some of the energy usage, air quality, comfort controls, exposure to nature. There's things built into LEED and WELL standards around nature preservation and also exposure to nature, which studies show that increased exposure to nature has some real positive health and mental wellness benefits. Connection to nature, light quality. There's all these different things that we could be communicating better to the public when we list homes, when we develop homes. And if only we were communicating those, then we would start to see a lot of these captured better. And then you can hit the next slide. Yeah, Marcy, we can get you a copy of that too.
Yeah, just to lean in, there'll be if you email me, my contact information is in here. I'll make sure that it gets out to you pronto. Thank you. And I guess we have Michael Murphy. Are you?
Looks like it's my turn to jump in there, right, Chad?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mary, as you can just scroll through the slides as I'm talking here. So Murphy Brothers Contracting is a general contracting firm as I mentioned, in the Westchester, Fairfield, Lower Hudson Valley area. We build, you can keep scrolling those, Mary, it's okay, because we're gonna get to that last one there. We build all kinds of things like this big old house that we're building here in Larchmont. Currently, it doesn't look like that. It's a little about 75% finished. You keep going, Mary, on that slide. That's good. and to the next one after that. So that's just me showing off some of the great guys that work for us, so very dedicated to what we do. About another one, Mary, you can go through the next slide. So about 10 years or so ago, we were doing a dream home project with Westchester Magazine. And we thought it was open to the public for tours, and we thought, oh, this is terrific. People are going to be so interested in seeing this beautiful home that we built. You go to the next slide, Mary. And then what happened was that all they were interested in was knowing about the green features of the house. And so we thought, wow, we better understand more about green features of houses. This was, I think it was in 2009. So we started investigating into different means and methods to building houses more energy efficient. And along the way, we decided that we were going to help educate the architects in the area. So we started a series of presentations every month about how to build houses more energy or buildings more energy efficient. You go to the next one. So thank you. And along the way, we've come to understand that this is no longer, we're trying to get the architects to like have a conversation with their clients about, they should include energy efficient features in the house, and it was very difficult to get them to have these conversations. But as Andreas and John had mentioned in their part of the presentation there, Local Law 97 is a law in New York City that you are required to do energy efficiencies in your buildings, have to the point where they want you to do all electric buildings. That's what they're heading towards. And if you don't, there's a fee that they charge you. So obviously, there's going to be some pain involved if you don't want to do this. Now, this happened. This is a picture of the front of our office building after Hurricane Ida last year, just about a year ago, where we had 8 feet of water in some of the buildings on our properties. A lot of people got affected. We were more or less near ground zero. And let's say that climate change basically slapped us in the face. This is no longer a debate or a conversation. This is a reality. And so why we're having this presentation today is we want you to just feel comfortable selling your clients on high performance homes, which are basically what we call an energy efficient home. So we call it, or an energy efficient building, we call it a high performance building because, like a high performance car, this home is going to operate more efficiently, save your clients money. There's going to be more air, indoor air quality, all these different kind of benefits. I don't know if you're as shocked as I am, but if you talked about electric cars 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, you thought it was just, it's some sort of a fancy that might go the way of all other kinds of newfangled inventions, but it's a reality. I mean, this is where we're going. It's electric cars. You can see that I think it's in New York State where it says they're going to outlaw the sale of all gas engine cars by 2035. So the car that you might be driving today, you aren't going to be able to buy a similar car in 1935 or in 2035. If you're looking at gas stations, you're going to see them go by the wayside as well, because we're moving in towards an all electric kinds of transportations. So Murphy Brothers, we do all kinds of things. We help people get solar on their buildings. We help them do a lot of clean energy strategies within their buildings, such as geothermal. And we've done maybe 35 or 40 geothermal systems in homes and in buildings over the years. But with that, I'd like to switch it over to Dan Singer, because Dan has got that geothermal thing covered.
It would help if I unmuted myself. Thanks, Michael. And thanks a lot, John and Andreas, too. I think that, the work that you guys are doing is tremendous and really kind of, cutting edge on what's going on, especially new home construction. If you can flip to the next slide, Mary. What we're really focusing on now at Robison, and again, it's like I was saying in the introduction, it's a mind shift change, right? I think one thing that I don't remember if it was John or Andreas that were touching on, how energy efficiency and being green is not just about the environment, but there's a cool factor to it, right? Homeowners want it. Home buyers are interested in it, and especially the new generation of home buyers are are, as Michael was pointing out, electric cars, and really the new home of the future. People are looking for things other than the way that their parents did it, by burning fossil fuels. And we've really invested a lot of our time, energy, and resources in developing a full portfolio of heat pumps, more so focused on retrofitting existing homes, because we have a lot of older homes in Westchester. A lot of them are present challenges of how they're going to adapt to the times. And if you can flip to the next slide, I just wanted to spend a couple minutes just setting the playing field a little bit on what is a heat pump, how do they work, what are we, what are they, right? A heat pump transfers heat from one place to another, by different air or heat sources. The air source heat pump moves moves heat between the air inside the home and the air outside the home, while the ground source heat pump, the geothermal heat pump, transfers heat between the air inside a home and the ground outside the home. And it sounds like a simple concept. It really is a simple concept. This is technology that is not new, but its ability to do it at scale is what's becoming new. And I could talk a little bit about each one of these just to make sure that we're all in the real estate community are all that much more literate in how this works. I mean, everybody understands how an oil burner works, at least conceptually, right? You're heating, especially with a boiler, right? You're firing off a fossil fuel, you're boiling water, you're moving that water through the house through the coils or radiators. That part of it's easier. A furnace that's blowing hot air, that's easy. But how does a heat pump create heat and energy in the house? And if you could flip to the next slide, Mary. So it's basically moving, as I said before, air over a coil. And if we think about the science behind it, right? We always talk about, everybody watches the news or watches the weather forecast. We always know that when it's warm outside and a cold front is coming in, or if it's cold outside and a warm front is coming in, and these two fronts bang into each other, we get lightning storms and thunderstorms and all kind of things, because there's energy that's created when warm and cold smash into each other. So when we move air from that's in one environment to another environment that's already at a significantly different temperature, then we create energy. And then once that energy is created, it excites a gas, a refrigerant. That refrigerant boils, creating even more heat that is then passed over a heat exchanger that blows through the house. Actually, the next slide might, again, I don't want to get too wonky on this here and too technical for this presentation, but of course we can provide more resources later. If you can flip to the next slide, because I want to spend a couple more minutes on the ground source heat pumps than on the air source heat pumps. Mary,
Hi, sorry, I'm having trouble.
Moving?
For some reason, it's not moving.
Oh,
here we go. Sorry, it must have been my key stuck. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. The geothermal one is what I, is really kind of it's not a breakthrough technology, but the ability to adapt it to existing homes is what's becoming breakthrough. And this is really, again, where we've been trying to spend a lot of our time, recently, because there's got to be some way to take advantage of what's going on right below our feet, right? The Earth's temperature is always 55 degrees. I have well water at my house in Briarcliff, and I've done this experiment with a garden hose, right? Because it's pumping water out of the ground. I have a hot tub at the house, and every time we refill the hot tub, we put hundreds of gallons of water in from the garden hose, and it's always 55 degrees when it comes out of the ground. It's just one of those miracles of science. So if I take water that is colder than that, and I run it through a loop, typically about 150 feet, through a loop through the ground, it goes in at a temperature colder than that. It comes back at 55 degrees. That change in temperature by the heat exchanger is what creates the energy that excites the gas, that creates the ability to move warm air. We can move warm air out of the house then in the summertime to create cooling, or we can move the warm air into the house in the wintertime to create warmth. Now, the heat pump itself is it's not going to produce heat at the levels that a furnace can. It's going to really basically run somewhere around 80 degrees, heat that'll be moving through at a much higher velocity through a ducted system within a home. But the cool thing about it is that you're not burning any fossil fuel when you're doing it. So we're always conditioned in our minds to try to save energy by using perhaps a programmable or a smart thermostat to turn back the temperature during the day because we don't want to burn any more fuel than we need to. We don't need to worry about that when we're running a heat pump. Leave the temperature on all the time. And these systems are great at maintaining temperature, not as great about raising temperature. But again, we don't need to be concerned about it if we're leaving it on all day. Mary, if you can go to the next slide. So not all homes, at least as it exists today, can qualify for it, but probably 30% of the homes that we see do so far. We're partnering right now with Dandelion. Some of you might have heard of Dandelion. They're an offshoot of a Google think tank that started about 9 years ago. They basically developed a system, and they're backed by Lennar and the Gates Foundation and a number of other big players who have really taken a position to make a change in this space. And the reason why we partner with Dandelion is where there's a lot of people out there that have the technology to do it. They basically figured out how to do this at scale and have the drilling capacity to get into places that you don't ordinarily see. I chose this slide to put up here as part of this presentation because, as you can see, this is an existing neighborhood, a lovely home, and you can see the equipment that's going in next to the house. A few years ago, that would have needed to have been a giant rig that would have stood 20 feet tall, that would have needed literally a tractor trailer truck to get it in there. And now the equipment can be on equipment even smaller than this one. There's new Komatsu drilling equipment that they're using that can be basically the size of a pickup truck that if it can get next to the house of maybe 8 feet of clearance and get into the backyard, it can be drilling a well and get that 150-foot loop drilled in a matter of days. And once that's done and the heat exchanger can be set up, the work inside the house is the stuff that, at least we at Robison and other HVAC companies have been doing for years. So we take everybody through a process of qualifying the home, going through a consultation, educating the homeowner on what is involved in it, deal with all of the permitting, all of the drilling, all of the installation. All of that is handled, kind of a one-stop shop. What Dandelion's research has shown them is 2 homes. If you look at these 2 houses, the green one where they're doing that equipment and the gray one right to our right that's looking at it, when this work is done, that home on the left is going to be worth 5% more than the home on the right. That is just what we're seeing in the marketplace and what the demand is. The new buyer in Westchester, the one that's moving from the upper west side or the upper east side and buying a house in Larchmont, Mamaroneck, or wherever they might be buying a home. Oftentimes they're not mansions; they are nice luxury homes, perhaps 3,000 or 4,000 feet, but they're spending millions of dollars to do it. And after incentives, an investment to rid your home of fossil fuel could be a net cost of, again, after all the incentives of maybe $50,000 to the home, less than the cost that many homeowners are spending to redo the master bathroom or the kitchen or whatever they might have done to modernize the home. We're seeing that investment with a much higher return. Instead of being spent in the kitchen and the master bedroom, it's really in the basement and the attic, upgrading the air handlers, upgrading the physical plant. And really making that home into a home for the 21st century, and it can be done, really kind of as I said, in a one-stop kind of environment with our partnership with Dandelion. Mary, can you flip to the next slide, please? So this talks a little bit about our partnership, how the technology works. Again, I don't want to get too wonky with it. We've worked with a few other partners, but we've really found Dandelion to be a great partner to work with because of their resources and because of their ingenuity that they're bringing to the drilling element of this. I'm seeing some questions popping up in the bottom, but I guess we're waiting for questions till later on. I'll let Mary or Chad kind of navigate us through that. So if you can just flip to the next slide, we'll get through this quicker, and then maybe we can address some other stuff in Q&A. Oh, yeah, we did want to touch on biofuels because there are some homes, at least as it exists today, that are not going to qualify for geothermal. Again, I say that as it exists today, and the primary reason why they wouldn't is based upon the existing heating system. Right now, if the home has either hydro air or a furnace based hot air system, then it's frankly relatively easy. If it has central air conditioning, it might be okay to do it because oftentimes central air conditioning has the home already fully ducted, with ductwork throughout the house, but it may not be the type of ductwork that can handle the high velocity that's needed to move the geothermal heat through the home. We of course could retrofit that ductwork, but that does add some expense. Homes that have baseboard heating, there are solutions being developed for that now. We're actually doing some R&D along with Dandelion to use cassettes, ductless systems that can go up on the walls of various rooms of the house that allows you to abandon the baseboard without needing to redo all the ductwork in the home. It's a much more cost-effective way to do it. But we're literally in the experimental stage. We've actually installed this in 3 homes of Dandelion employees so far. And working along with Samsung, who's designing these systems to see if we can get that done in scale. And right here in Westchester will be the test market for the country to be able to retrofit baseboard heated homes with these type of ductless geothermal heated systems. So those homes that can't do that, they should be, that homeowner should also be shopping and make themselves aware of what's available to them in biofuels. Biofuels is really what the fuel of the future for heating oil. It doesn't require any retrofit or changes to a home's heating equipment. It's made from domestically produced soybean oil. At Robison, we're using a 10% biofuel blend now. Next year, we're upgrading that to a 20% bio blend. We're using all soybean, but there are some derivatives that use palm oil for it as well. Like I said, it burns just the same as heating oil, produces ostensibly the same BTU output, and is actually cleaner than natural gas to burn, and significantly lowers the home's carbon footprint. Right now, New York State is offering a rebate on people's state income taxes when they buy a bio-blended fuel. So for every percentage of biofuel that's in the product, New York State gives the taxpayer back a penny a gallon. So if you're using a B20 and use 1,000 gallons of fuel in your home, you would get 20 cents a gallon back, or $200 back on your state income taxes, which is a pretty neat incentive that New York State is doing as the state works towards the goal of decarbonizing all the physical plants and ultimately move to electrification of homes through things like air source heat pumps and ground source heat pumps, geothermal heat pumps. I think that was the last slide we had on this. Is there something else? Yeah.
Thank you, Dan. So I'll kick off the question, and this question is for both Andreas and John. As a realtor, if I'm a realtor and someone's looking to buy a home in Bedford or Armonk, and they see this oil tank outside and they want to run, and I reel them back in and say, hey, it's not that bad, let's talk. When is the right time to interject an architect into my buying decision for this home that I'm going to retrofit and make it greener?
Andreas, do you want to take that one?
Well, I would say the earlier the better. I think we have done retrofits of all buildings to Passive House high performance standard. That's possible. There's no problem with doing so. But I think the earlier you involve someone who has a good idea about it, the better it is. I think if you intend to buy a home and you want to be sustainable and low carbon and high performance and healthy home, you probably want to make the decision together with your experts or architect or whoever you consult. I think it's important.
Okay, I'm just looking at the chat. There was another question
Chad's on mute.
Allison had. Is the cost of geothermal similar for new construction?
I guess I'll field that one. So the incentives are the same, both the rebates and the tax incentives, and it gets even better after January 1st once the Inflation Reduction Act goes into effect, and there's additional tax incentives for people. It's incrementally less expensive because you've got an empty frame where it's much easier to do the proper size ductwork. And be able to design the home from scratch, assuming that you're going to be, heating and cooling the home through a ducted system. There is some expense always in the decommissioning process, right? If you're trying to retrofit into a home, you've got to still decommission the oil tank or decommission the gas lines, designing the home from scratch with geothermal is incrementally more cost effective.
Michael, can you add on to that? Because I know you got a little experience with this as well when you're.
Well, when people are looking at it this way, not only are we're already convinced that it's a comfortable system and it's going to be energy efficient, but they're also getting a 26% federal tax incentive on the installation of the geothermal. Plus, if you're doing it in Con Edison territory, which is what we call a gas constrained area because you can't get gas services for your new construction. You're going to find that Con Edison has a very robust rebate program for the house behind me there. They're getting, if you can believe it, $150,000 cash back from Con Edison for putting in their geothermal system.
So, go ahead. I'm sorry. There was a question about will this be? I guess he was talking about the geothermal. Will this be added to green designation, or maybe you can speak about what determines what a green designation is?
I think maybe green designation is something that the realtors have. Green designation for the house itself. I mean, there are designations for homes. Andreas, there are several. Maybe you can list some of them.
Yeah, I mean, there are different standards. I think what we usually concentrate on is really reducing first step is really for us is reducing the energy use of the building.
Right.
Which basically means that you use less energy, but you also have the benefits of health, I think, associated with it. And then we're using more efficient system like geothermal and heat pump systems. I'm not familiar with the Realtors Green label. Maybe John, you can give us more input on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Christian, you mean specifically what designation that would be talking about. As far as green buildings or sustainable buildings, all of these terms are very vague and open, and there's not necessarily one that everyone is talking about in common vernacular. Like you could be talking about LEED or WELL or passive house or high performance or no necessarily like certification. I think geothermal is a big piece of what people are talking about when we're moving forward to more sustainable built environments, though.
Okay, great. John had a question. Does the presence of extensive ground rock after the decision about what kind of heat pump a homeowner chooses? I guess he's asking about ground.
Actually, if I could say, rock is good for drilling. So we like rock. We'd rather have rock. The worst is sand, but rock is good.
Yeah, Michael,
if I just might jump in, you might think about this as everybody's familiar with St. Patrick's Cathedral. St. Patrick's Cathedral has a geothermal system. They actually retrofitted it, they drilled through the sanctuary, the lobby there, and they put their system in there right there in Manhattan. Love rock.
Yeah, I would just add something to what Michael said too. That's a great example, Michael. That is probably the most common question I hear, and probably the most common misconception about geothermal. Rock is good. Rock is a much better conductor of heat. It's obviously more stable. And the drilling equipment has the ability to drill through, proper drilling equipment can drill through virtually anything. So, a lot of people say with all the bedrock we have here in Westchester, that it would make it more difficult. It's quite the opposite. Rock is good.
Okay, someone is asking about solar energy to heat homes. I know we talked about that a little bit today. Maybe somebody can just elaborate on how that works.
Yeah, I could take the question maybe. So I think, and that's always a good discussion to have. Do we have solar panels or do we produce actually energy on our building themselves? And that's always possible, but in certain villages like Scarsdale, it's not really welcome because of the aesthetics associated with it. So again, I think key is to reduce the energy. If you then want to produce it on your building, you could. And with that produced energy, you can then drive your heat pump systems. We see that a high performance building like a passive house, for example, can be net zero, meaning it produces as much energy as it uses for the entire building, including heating, cooling, and domestic water. So it's possible, but you have to match your production then and your use, and you have to electrify your building with geothermal or heat pump systems.
Yeah, I would add something too. I mean, and Andreas makes a great point, but it's we're like in the maybe the top of the second inning to where solar technology is going to be going and the solar efficiency is going. I mean, it's gotten a lot better, but it's going, that we're going to continue to see significant improvement. As of today, it's a great way to offset what you're taking from the grid. But it's going to be challenging to have it replace even all of your traditional electrical needs, much less than what you would need to heat your home if you're going to using it as an electrical source. We do see people heating their hot water with it, and there are solutions that are specifically for hot water heaters that you could decrease or eliminate your use of fossil fuels to heat your hot water.
I think Leah had a question. Leah Caro had a question that New York State Climate Action Council has recommended standards and timelines for all electric in statewide housing. A lot of conversation surrounding the grid's ability to handle it and the increase in severe weather taking down the system. So she's asking if anyone to comment on that.
I mean, the current all-electric bill is for residential single family only new construction, so it's not affecting any existing buildings. It is in the legislation currently would require all new construction single families to be all electric by 2024 December 31st, so already in 1 year, and would kick in 27 for all residential building below 7 stories, so for multifamily as well. I think that the idea here is really to push building and the industry towards efficiency that is really required. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do that. But doesn't really talk to existing buildings yet. And at the same time, the CPLC, whatever it's called, also envisions that New York State is 100% renewable by 2040. So that's also a very short timeline, and therefore we have to match our usage of that energy.
Right. So just to piggyback on that, so high performance buildings can use 80 to 90% less electricity or less energy than a standard built building. Am I right, Andreas?
Roughly. Yeah.
So I mean, so the cost there is going to be you're using less energy, less electricity. So that's why we're advocating for these high performance buildings. I mean, so while they're building wind farms off the shore of Connecticut. So
yeah, I think the only thing I would add to that is I think it's a kind of comprehensive, holistic picture. So to get to this of electrifying our system, we need to bring our energy usage down, which is what Michael just said around increasing our energy efficiency dramatically, so our overall usage is down, but also building in things like building in more renewable energy and distributed generation. So distributed generation can help with some of the outages, for instance. So if you're generating from solar panels or generating in a variety of ways at the source itself, so on a home, you're going to be less vulnerable to power outages in the first place.
And also, I think one big important part is the resiliency of buildings. So we do have to design building to a higher resiliency standard. So for example, the building behind me, that passive house in Scarsdale, even if there is no heating and no electricity or any energy, the building in the wintertime probably wouldn't drop below 55 degrees because of the solar heat gains the building receives and the very high quality, containment of that heat. So I think to build our buildings to higher resiliency standard is very important, I think, moving forward.
Great. Does anyone have any other questions? This has really been an informative presentation, and people have asked if it is being recorded. Yes, and we should have that for you later this afternoon. If not, then on probably Tuesday, because Monday is our holiday, Columbus Day. So,
Hey, Mary, I just wanted to add one thing in, and Dan, this is a parting question for you. In the beginning of the presentation, I had mentioned that Robison was an ESCO as well. Can you just kind of, one, talk about what an ESCO is and why a homeowner of a larger home may be interested in that? And then two, can you talk about the green electricity that we sell and how that comes about? And then we can say goodbye to everyone.
So what an ESCO is, for those that aren't familiar with it, an ESCO is an energy services company. We participate in the deregulated energy space, providing gas and electricity to homes and buildings, where the transportation part of the commodities delivered to the home through the utility, but the actual product itself, the molecules of gas and electricity, are provided to the system, to Con Edison, from an ESCO like Robison. For private homes, we offer a unique product that keeps us in compliance with some of the new regulations on natural gas. Robison bundles its natural gas service together. If you're buying your natural gas, you automatically get a free tune and test service contract on your heating equipment. So the maintenance, the annual maintenance of your service of your heating equipment, we do for free. If you're buying your natural gas from us, bringing kind of that same service model that oil burning homes have had for a long time to the gas market. But I think what Chad was talking about on the electric market is the new Public Service Commission regulations require to help the state get to its goals of decarbonization and greening the state. In order to be an ESCO, you need to deliver at least 50% of renewable energy to private homes, participate in the private home space. At Robison, we use 100% renewable products. So it's all being done through offsets through hydroelectric production. So it's just we're buying renewable energy credits, which funds the development and production of more hydro electricity production. I hope that addresses your question.
Thank you.
And Chad, if I can jump in there for a minute, I don't know if anybody is interested in this as on the panel or in the group today, but that house that we're building in Larchmont, if anybody'd like to see a geothermal system installed, what it looks like, and maybe Dan and Andreas had helped me with this, we could do a tour of people that have participated on the call today to come over and take a look at it, and they can give them a bird's eye view and show them, tell them exactly how this thing works and what it looks like. So,
yeah, and to end it all, and then I'll just be respectful of everybody's time. Me and my team and Michael and Andreas and John, we're willing to take this show on the road too. So realtors, if you need us to come into your office and kind of drill down a little deeper in regards to what we discussed today, we'd be more than happy to do it. And we'll even bring coffee and donuts.
oh.
You got everybody with that, Chad. I want to thank you all for attending today. And as I had mentioned earlier, Robison is going to be sponsoring a live breakfast with benefits coming up November 15th about working with first-time home buyers. They're doing that together with NARAP, the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals. So that should be a great event. And yes, there will be coffee and bagels and Danish. So you do not want to miss that. And again, thank you so much, everyone. And we will see you soon. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.